It's really hard to see the future. It's funny, if I went back and talked to Jimmy, I would tell him exactly what he already knew. Put one foot in front of the other. You can only do what you can do a day at a time. Don't beat yourself up for making mistakes. We all go through circumstances that we can't control. We all make mistakes. But if you allow yourself to make the same mistake twice, then you lose.
You were my sun, you were my earth.
It's amazing. It's definitely a spring. It's got its own little thing going on, though. It's not like anything that I've heard. Hi, I'm Jimmy Douglas, and I'm here today with Audiopunks. I'm here to share with you the journey that I've had. I've had a very blessed, long journey career, over 4 decades. Been blessed to work with artists such as Aretha Franklin, Donny Hathaway, Roberta Flack, the Rolling Stones, Foreigner, Dr. John, many more. And moving forward into the era of now, Timberlake, Justin Timberlake, Jay-Z, Ludacris, Missy Elliott, Aaliyah, and many, many more. The hard part is always starting out in doing any craft. It seems like you're never going to be up there, but you want to be up there. And with everything that you might know, you think that you're ready to be there today. I can tell you the amount of times for me growing up, I was ready, but I would fuck up in a session and they would say, you're not ready. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'm only throwing that in because while you're learning how to do all that stuff that you're doing, I think it's very important to remain grounded, wait for opportunity to come your way. What I find many times, I find many people, many young people coming up and starting, they're so anxious to show you what they know, that they become very obnoxious. And I really don't even want to deal with them as people. And I think that when you remain calm, grounded, then you as a person comes through. And then what happens is it attracts other people that might know other people that might get you the shot that you're looking for. It's easy to talk from where I'm sitting, so they say. But I didn't start and get here yesterday. It's been a lot of years, and it's been a lot of learning, and it's been a lot of that kind of stuff where you treat people kind and you never know when it's going to come back to you. As a matter of fact, I will stick on that one. That is the main one. I just ran into somebody today that told me they made probably one of the biggest records of the year, and they were gracious for the way that I treated them when they weren't that. I wasn't treating them anyway. They were good people. Why wouldn't I be willing and wish them well in their success? They were good people. People may be focused many times on who they are and where they're going, but the rest of the world is focused on who they are and where they're going. So trying to be symbiotic with that so we can all share some of that, that's where success comes from. For those that are starting and trying to do in a world that's really saturated with a lot of people that can do the same thing, and that's really what that is. However, there's the discovery of social media and the internet and all the streaming services. Business is being done in a very different way. And the advantage actually for everyone coming up is like, if you put your mind to it, it's not necessarily about making the record anymore. It's really about the business around the record. And the new business is now in the hands of young people or old people or people who wants to sit and learn the technology and get on there. It's available. You have your own radio station. You have your own TV station. You can talk to the world if you want it. If you want to do that through all these different platforms, it's available to you. And there's been a lot of success from a lot of people that weren't involved yesterday, and suddenly they just appear out of nowhere from these social media networks, which means accessibility has actually grown. And one might even argue, taking a little bit of the power from the record company and put the power into the hands of the people. So if you do your homework and you really, really want this, I'm speaking to you in a way like I understand it's there, but I don't really know all the ins and outs. And I see a lot of younger people that spend a lot of time having a lot of knowledge about how to work through this whole new system. And I think it's amazing, and I think it's a great opportunity. And I believe that, once again, if you really struggle and you really work hard and you spend your time focusing on this, you will be rewarded. There's no doubt about it. One of the statements I always make, and I'll continue to say this, you're going to get what you want. It might not come in the package that you wanted it in, and it might not look like what you thought it was going to look like, but if you work your tail off and you continue to focus on this stuff, you're going to win. It's undeniable. One of the hardest things about being involved in the music business and the studio life is trying to manage and have a work versus life balance. And I would say that early in my career, there was no life balance. I was all work. Matter of fact, because I started was when I was high school, and then all my friends started going to college, and they were hanging out, and I was living with a girlfriend or whatever, but like they would all be like on Fridays, we're going out, we're gonna hang out. I can't. I'm in the studio. I'm working. That's all I did. I didn't ever go out, and I took shit from her all the time. Why can't you go hang out? And I was like, but that's part of what I was doing because I was fascinated by it. I was just totally entranced. There was nothing else for me other than that. And I actually lost a lot of relationships with a lot of those people and just doing the things that young kids do, whatever you do when you're, teenager into adolescent, whatever you're doing, hanging out, eating, having dinner, or whatever you guys do. I wasn't doing it. I was stuck in the studio. And you know what's interesting? The studio learned to rely on me because I actually lived across the street from the studio, first of all. So I was the guy that was always on the weekends right across the street. So give it to Jimmy, which is actually a good thing. The more you work, the more you know. The more you do, the faster you grow. Hey! My relationship with Justin Timberlake came when he left NSYNC. And I was working with Timberland. He was searching for a sound. And in that process, I had done many, many records. I remember one thing. I remember Justin was infatuated by Donny Hathaway and his abilities as a singer and as an artist. We had this sort of kinship. He was hungry for knowledge about what he hadn't seen, and he wanted to get some of that. And then also in that relationship, Justin's like a sponge. When he learns stuff quickly and he goes quickly to the next level. So we had that thing that we were sharing together. You had Timberland making these exotic, different beats, and then you had the knowledge that I was bringing from the old school, which everybody seems to like. Justin actually seems to trust what I do, and he lets me do what I do while he does what he does. And he's brilliant at it. And so that's how that whole thing works. Basically, the trust and what do you think? And we all move forward together and we work together. It's very important to work together. Future Sex Love Sounds album, he kind of right in the room with me, and there would be nobody else there, and we would just talk about stuff, and he bounced stuff off of me. This is a good idea, bad idea, whatever. It was just fun. But what was interesting about the record Sexy Back, and I don't have the track sheet to show you, because we did it on a board with track sheets and stuff. When he did that hook, the record, he goes, oh, Sexy Back, and then he goes, go ahead, be gone with it. And Timberland goes, VIP, go ahead, be gone with it. That's the actual hook. Structurally, if you look at the song, there's a verse and a hook. Verse, B section, and a hook. And I said to him one day, I said, this hook isn't really that strong. Go ahead, be gone with it. The cleverness of Justin was he was like, But did he change the hook? No. What did he do? He changed the title. Sexy Back was always there. It was the first line of the song. So instead of in the verse being the verse, he made that the focus of the record. Smash. Rest is history. I think if you're really an engineer, do that job. Don't be so anxious to jump across the thing and do somebody else's job, because inside of this box here, it's not that hard to do. For all of you that think that I'm just talking whatever, I'm just saying it's not the same thing as having to put tape together, do live things, does make decisions right away. They're singing the vocal now. You're not going to fly it later. Okay, that's the difference. It's like either you get it or you don't get it. And also, you got a limited amount of tracks. And if you decide to go over the one that you got because it's the last track you got, well, guess what? Either you get a better take or you don't. You're sitting in the studio for the next 6 hours trying to catch it. So, no, I think that this thing simplifies, and I think that most people can do this. And if you're the engineer, be the engineer. If the producer and the artist are stuck for some ideas, please bring them forward. But wait your turn. Don't be so anxious to jump in and throw stuff in people's records. To me, the job of the engineer, producer, and all that stuff, they're very, very blurred lines. But at the same time, there is a hierarchy to finishing proper ideas, i.e., if an artist has an idea, even if it's terrible, let them finish it, because we have the tools that we can actually change it later. So let them get that out, because if they can get that idea out, then they will be more willing to hear your idea. If you don't let them get it out and you keep throwing stuff in their face, it's not going to really work out together. You both are going to be going two different directions, and it'll probably be very unproductive. If you're going to be titled the engineer, and that's okay for you, and if it isn't okay, then don't come to this studio and sit in this seat. If you want to be the producer, be the producer. You can do it. You have your laptop, be the producer. Be in charge. But if you want to be like a really, really good engineer, part of what that is like to wait your turn, bring good ideas to the table when asked for. I'll give you another good example. This happens with me with assistants a lot. They come in the room and all they tell me about is them. They tell me all they talk about is what they can do instead of realizing you're here to help me. So tell me how you can help me first, because that's why I need you. But it's about what they're doing. And they keep watching me, and they'll keep watching me do things my way. And I'm quite fine with the way I do stuff, but they keep volunteering information, and they just basically mess up my flow. And what inevitably happens is I'll get to a place where I really don't know information about something in here, and I really don't know the information, and I go, hey, do you know how to do this? And they go, oh, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, then I don't need you. You're busy telling me how to do what I already know. Just show me what you know, as opposed to helping me when I do need something. That was a bit of a rant, but that's true. That's how I feel about that. It's like, wait your moment will come. And that moment will come, inevitably will come. And you'll be the genius, and you'll be the star of the show. But you got to wait for that moment. If I could go back and talk to myself, the thing that's so interesting, it's really hard to see the future. All you really know around you is what is around you and how to work that. And all I ever learned, it's funny, if I went back and talked to Jimmy, I would tell him exactly what he already knew, which is put one foot in front of the other. You can only do what you can do a day at a time. Don't beat yourself up for making mistakes. The one thing that Jimmy did, and I still do, and I tell a lot of my mentees and so forth, is like, the only thing that life really offers is this. We all go through circumstances that we can't control. We all make mistakes. But if you allow yourself to make the same mistake twice, then you lose. In other words, I've always done this. If something would happen to me that wasn't good, even in a situation like this, whatever happened, I'd walk away and go, that will never happen again. And I'd make sure in my life, I will never let that happen again. And that's the lesson that I taught myself by having to go through that trial, whatever that was. And I still, to this day, am the same way. I'm not as good at it as I once was. But it's like, yeah, if you get in trouble for doing something, well, then you don't let that circumstance ever happen again. Even in office situations, you end up in a trick play. It happens all the time. People always trying to throw the blame or whatever. And you just go, okay, you got me this time, but that will never happen again. And I'll make sure of it. And you work really hard to learn from your mistakes. There's one session in my life. There was a time when I taught myself how to work the synclavier. And we're talking in the late 80s. But I taught myself the synclavier was a $250,000 digital recorder. Had the keyboard attached to it, and you could do all this stuff. And Stevie Wonder had one, Herbie Hancock, Nile Rodgers, a handful of artists could afford a $250,000 machine, especially in that period of time. $250,000 would be like $1 million machine. But it did all these things and nothing else did. This is before Pro Tools and all that other stuff, which came along later. The point of the story is it had 3 different modes. One was like a jingle mode, and one was like posting mode, and one was actually for records, but they hadn't developed it yet. They hadn't really thought about how to make it work. And I was invited to do this session with Heavy D. The hip-hop world were making different types of music that I really wasn't that knowledgeable how to do. They were scratching, they were making drops, but they were doing it with turntables. I don't play turntable. I didn't know how to do it. But the point of the session was the way I was using the synclavier, which is what he wanted to use, it wasn't like you would use a tape machine, and it wasn't relatable. And it was the one session in my life that I really could not handle. I didn't really know how to get it. And they were very dissatisfied. And he was walking around the room and he was saying things like, man come to work and don't know his job. And he was talking, and I'm like, and I was feeling, I've never felt that bad in my life. I literally turned to the assistant. I said, can you work the machine? And he goes, yeah, I can do it. I said, well, you're going to have to do this for me. And I walked out the door. I've never done that in my life, never done it since, and I had never done it before, but it was a time I could not serve what they wanted because he kept saying, make it go, stop, and I'm like, that's not what this does. But I didn't have enough information to understand, oh, it's a turntable. No. What happens in a session for me is the edict is always, no matter what happens, well, it's like showbiz. It's like the show must go on. If everybody's there, you got a bunch of musicians and things are working and you're supposed to be capturing it on a tape. Well, let's say, for instance, the tape machine breaks. Well, fine. Do we have another tape machine in the house? Do we have a lesser tape machine? If it was a multi-track, do we have a lesser tape machine? If you're doing on digital over here and the machine breaks, can we get another hard drive? Can we get another computer in? I mean, if you can, you do. And hopefully everybody will be happy enough. If you're confident about the fact that you can make it work with just a little bit of time, they'll be confident too. If you decide, oh my God, I can't believe it, the tape machine broke, then everybody's gonna kind of be like, let's get out of here. This guy's nervous, he has no confidence that it's gonna work, so why should we hang around? He doesn't know what he's doing. That's kind of how I would approach stuff like that. I believe that the system of points and sharing in the success of a record is very important. I believe that your time will come when you're allowed to ask for whatever you want and they will give it to you. Also see many times a lot of people that walk in the door and they're just learning and they just happen to get their finger in and they expect that they should get the same thing. I've seen assistants that I've had that come in and they watch me and then I'll like throw them a little mix or something and they'll try to get my price and it's like, don't you understand what you're getting right now? You're getting an opportunity and that company doesn't want to pay you the money like that because you don't have the experience. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I mean, it's like, I won't ask you to do this again because now they're upset. And now instead of a good gesture that I'm doing to help everybody move to the next level, because you will, here's once again an opportunity for you to make that hit so that you can increase the points that you want to get. But all these things come in time. It's not, they walk in the door thinking, oh, this is what you get right away. And that whole attitude, I mean, it might work for some, but to me, it's like anything else in life. It has nothing to do with the records, has nothing to do with anything. It's like you have to come and get in line.
The devil's on my shoulder, but he won't win. Try to drag me down, I'm not giving in. Yeah, I'm adrenaline is flowing through my veins. All of the demons that I cannot face. The devil's knocking at my door again. Try to drag me down, I'm not giving in.
It's amazing. It's definitely a spring. It's got its own little thing going on though. It's not like anything it doesn't sound like any other reverb box that I've heard. It's not what I expected at all. I thought it was gonna be like another, oh, here's another plate. Oh, here's another. I didn't really get to the distortion thing yet. I need time to play with it, obviously. I was starting to understand how it was gonna work. There's just so much available to the new up and coming artists, producers, engineers that if you take advantage of it, you're going to come out with something. Even if you don't go the status quo route and you find your own way to go, because everybody's going to do this differently. That's the great thing about audio. That's the great thing about technology. There's no one way to do anything. That's what keeps it exciting, because you're constantly creating and competing with your fellow craftsmen. Amongst yourselves, you come up with new stuff and new creations. And that, to me, is where the younger generation should look into walking in the door. It takes time. Even with all the stuff available, it still takes time. You're not going to get a great cake if it's an instant cake. It'll be good, but it's never going to be as good as Grandma's cake where she's let it cook for 5 days. Thank you for coming to visit us here at Audiopunks. And I hope there was something that you gained out of this, even if it's one piece of knowledge that takes you to the next step.